Ladies and gentlemen, in the bag, episode numero 6. We are back.
How we doing?
Come on, Brad. Yes. How are you doing this lovely day?
It's doing good, man. Just catching up with you a little bit before we started recording, and it feels good. I can say that the bag is no longer only exclusively Discraft. I've moved some of these options into the bag, tried out some new ones per the advice we've been talking about on the podcast. So feels good. Store's staying busy. We got some secret things in the works here at Foundation, so talk to you about those things in a couple of weeks. But been busy over here hiring some new people for the retail store and warehouse. But how about you, Robbie? How's stuff going on in your neck of the woods?
Hey, it is going. I mean, speaking of new, for those of you who are tuned into the YouTube version, you're going to see the look is a wee bit different here. And I think this fully settles the debate that the comments have been trying to get us to go for weeks now, which is who has the better beard. Brad unanimously has the better beard now, so I'm happy to bow out.
Feels good.
Paul. So it's fantastic on this end. It's been a beautiful set of weather. We're like, I don't like those weeks where you get no rain. It feels like it hasn't rained in forever, so you just know there's like a long stretch coming of rain. Yep. So I kind of enjoy those little brief summer showers that randomly pop up. So we had one of those yesterday, which means that we're due for a pretty good set of weather for the next couple of days and maybe a week. We'll see.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Interesting episode we have for you all today. Robbie had me try out not two different molds, but just the same mold in two different types of plastic to fit our guest Michael today. So let's jump in, Robbie. Let's get Michael on and let's start talking about his bag.
Time. Michael West, we got him in the house. Michael, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great.
You are rocking that Foundation hat. We got a member of the Foundation Nation in the house.
Foundation Nation.
So we appreciate all of you who are listening to this podcast. And Michael, we are super stoked to have you join us today. We want to ask a few foundational questions to get to know you, get to know your game. So let's dive into the first, which is, I initially started asking this. I think I stopped. How long have you been playing disc golf, Michael?
So I've had discs for about 10 years. But I've only been really playing since last September. I've thrown a round or two every now and then. I actually dug up some videos the other day from my kids and I 6 years ago when we played, and they were really little. So I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I've been playing that long. But yeah, I just seriously got into it last September. Got the bug, and oh my gosh, I spent too much money on discs and stuff from then. So
I hear
whatever that is, 7 months, 8 months. Yeah,
it's crazy. You look down and you're like, oh, I have 12 discs and disc golf is cheap, and then you're like, oh, I have 200 discs. Disc golf's still cheap?
yeah,
and I'm sure it's even harder. Exactly. Brad working at a disc golf warehouse, struggle's real, right?
Yeah, it's a problem. I thought I had a problem before. I had no idea.
Yeah,
now I get to see all of them. I
can't imagine.
Man. Well, okay, so been playing seriously for several months now, and let's dive into the particulars. How far is your backhand distance, control distance, and how far are you looking for forehand distance?
So my backhand, typically, on average throw is probably 270 to 300. If I get it, I can get over 300 if I sometimes, but rarely. My forehand, it's pretty trash actually. So maybe 150. More of a utility play than it is me doing anything serious with it. I've been working on. I got a little course here in my yard though, so I've been trying to get a little 9-hole course, and I've only been doing forehands. So the max hole is 350. And so just trying to get better at it, but it's pretty garbage. So about 150 is my max.
That is okay, and that is when I try to get people to throw forehands, that is the easiest way that I learned how to throw forehand was exactly that. When I learned, hey, I'm going to start throwing forehands, I stepped up and I just started playing forehand only rounds, and it's wild how much faster you get that forehand down when you can't throw anything else but it. So I very much encourage that. Before we jumped on, you said that you went out and you got actual numbers for this. So I love that our guests, Brad, are realizing that we're going to ask these questions, and now we're getting live data. So Brad or Michael, Brad, I'd be curious one day, Brad. We should do this before next week's episode. Why don't we go out and do it ourselves?
Okay.
I'm so
let's do
game
it.
time. But Michael, you went out and you putted 10 putts from 15 feet, 10 from 25, and 10 from 40 feet. How'd it go for you?
So I got 7 from 10, which is probably average. 7 to 8 is probably what from 15. Sorry, probably what I'm making. 25, I'm usually hitting 3, and that's what I hit. And then from 40, I actually made 2, which kind of surprised me. But 2 is, it's probably right in there. 1 or 2 is all I'm going to make from there. So.
Okay. Were they early on in the 10 throws, or was it like you started getting it dialed and like the last 2 went in? Because I'm always curious about that.
So I threw 3 discs, 1 for 3 on the first. Then I went 0 for 6. And since I had 3, I only had 1 shot at the end, right? So I made that bad boy at the end to hit 2.
That's awesome. That was awesome. Hey, I mean, we call that clutch. So way to go, Michael. Sounds like you're a clutch putter. I love it. What is the strength of your game, would you say?
I think so far it's been up shots for sure. I'd say, when I say up shot, that's for me, that's within 150. I got my Berg, and I love that thing, and that gets me near the basket a lot of the time. And I would say I have a natural Anheuser throw, so anything with like a flex line, I'm actually reasonably good at, because that's just how the disc comes out of my hand most of the time. So I've always got a little fade on the end, and it starts off in Anheuser. So pretty good at those. Awesome.
I love that. Well, your Berg, we're going to dive, we'll just jump right into it. How's that sound? Brad, have you thrown a Berg yet?
Sure.
A little bit. I'm not going to call myself a Berg expert, though.
Okay. Is your Berg, it's in K1, is it K1 soft or just straight K1?
Just K1. Yep.
Okay. Fantastic. So we've got a Berg, and then you've got 3 judges and 2 entropies listed. So first off, I love the mold minimalization. Walk me through, are all 3 of your judges, you have classic blend, it's looking like, are they all classic blend? Oh, there's a fusion judge in there, I'm seeing.
There's fusion judge, yeah.
Okay,
yep, so 2 of them are classic blends. Yep.
Yeah. What is the function of those judges?
Yeah, so the 2, the purple one is my main putter right now, and then the other one's just an offhand to hold. You just kind of get used to holding the other one, so just there. And then the fusion judge is actually, I'm not sure I can get rid of that thing. Like it has a nice hyzer flip up to a glide. I mean, I can throw that thing anywhere from 175 to like 250. It just keeps going. And it's my most consistent disc if I have a shorter hole off the tee. So.
Okay, I love it. Dude, that's awesome. So do you ever use it for approaches, or for approaches do you find yourself just kind of using the Berg and your entropies?
The Berg is pretty much, anything that's a straight shot that I don't have to put any angle on, because the Berg's not coming back. You put that thing on angle, and it's gonna keep going. So if it's a straight shot or just maybe a little Anheuser, I can do the Berg. But yeah, pretty much the entropies are my approach discs. Anything from I'd say 175 to 220 is where I use those. And really they're for redundancy. I have a plasma and a cosmic neutron, and they're really just they're duplicates of each other. I probably don't need 2, but I just don't want to lose one out there in case. Yeah. I guess the plasma is probably a little more overstable, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, their plasma is so intriguing to me, because there are so many molds that I will admit, as much as y'all are like, I heard someone make a comment and they were like, pretty soon we're gonna have to call it, if it's not MVP or if it's not gyro, take it out the bag. You would think that I'm I'm signing a contract with Team MVP soon. No, I have not still thrown enough MVP that I can say for every mold that plasma does this to that mold, because it varies for a lot of those.
Yeah.
So that's not surprising to me to hear that it's understable, and at the same time, I thought that was going to be the case for NBs. I was wrong.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
looking at those, I think I can totally agree with you on the double entropy thing. And I hear that in terms of wanting to have like a backup for while you're on the course. I think depending on bag space, the only like recommendation I would give is if you love that Fusion Judge, I would look at getting like a prime judge or something like a base plastic judge, because if you throw that Fusion Judge so well, the only thing that I'm seeing you like sort of missing in there is a like something, because the Berg doesn't want to go far. Like that's the whole point of the Berg. Like it's for those approaches. So when I'm looking at this chart, and for those on YouTube, you can see it in the you can see it on the screen. I see that understable putter thrower being an option. And if you're throwing the Judge really well, dude, I would lean into that and look at like a prime plastic Judge, or I don't know how many backups of your classic blends you have. If you have one that like you've just been using it so long to practice with and it's been like beat to junk, like that's a great one to kind of cycle in there as well.
Yeah,
so
definitely got a few of those lying around.
Yeah, so I mean that would be my suggestion personally. I know we had talked about last week, Brad, you're a roach guy, but you don't like throwing the roach. So this is like one of those rare circumstances of, because like if I told you, Brad, do you have any roaches that just like fit the bill of what I'm talking about? Like they've been beat to a point?
Oh yeah.
So, and that's okay, because that's what practice putters are all for. I personally, when I practice putt, I don't use the putters that go in my bag. I leave those in the bag because I don't want the extra reps on them while I'm trying to like practice putt. So that's a little tidbit for all of you. But we're going to jump past the mid-ranges because we're going to spend a lot of time on the mid-ranges. And so I kind of actually want to lump all your drivers together, Michael. And when we get to drivers, you are gyro through and through, except for the Draco. So what does the Draco do for you?
Yeah. So, well, one, Heimberg's my favorite golfer. So, like, I feel like I gotta rep him in the bag somewhere. So that's one of the reasons. But I know that there's MVP, ones I could use. But the Draco is definitely a utility disc. That crappy forehand I just talked about that goes 150. If I've got to bend it around a tree to the right and I'm jammed, like that thing's going to the right. And I've got some holes that. I've got water that's short, but it's really a forehand hole, and that's kind of what I use it for. I disc up if I have to make it go left. So I'll disc up to the photon, the heavier photon. So I don't really use it on backhand a lot. Like I don't, because it dumps for me too hard left. So it's really a forehand only utility shot is what I use that for.
Okay. How often would you say that you end up having to need that utility shot? Like if you played 5 rounds in a row at a varying number of courses, how often are you pulling that disc out?
Maybe twice. Like it's not often. Now I do play in a league where I at a course that I use it every time because it's just a shot on the hole. That I have to make. There's an early Mando, and I've got to get right after that quick. So I do it. I've tried to turn over there, but that forehand just seems more consistent for me. So.
Yeah. Okay. I mean that's awesome. Have you tried throwing your heavier photon on that same line? And you said when you throw that, it actually turns a little bit for you.
The photon.
Like goes left. Yeah.
The photon, I've been working on it, but if I throw it on a forehand, it's going to go right out of my hand. Like I don't have enough power to make it get any kind of turn left out of my forehand.
Okay. So. Yeah, I'm not trying to push the Draco out of the bag because I'm a Heimberg fan through and through with you. So I love that, and I am totally here to have that in there. I wondered from a vantage point of familiarity if you if I were you, maybe in an afternoon, that league shot, that hole that you use it for, take your photons out there and see if you can throw that photon on that same line and see if if it's just some reps that you need. And wonder if that could possibly replace it overall, so that way you're used to throwing the photons on backhand anyways, and just get that comfortability, once again, that subconscious confidence with that driver. Yeah. Brad, when you throw, what's your overstable distance driver that you have? Is it Zeus's?
Yeah, I just keep those in if I'm in a really weird situation, a kind of a utility shot. If I'm throwing, it depends. I have varying weights of Hades and various different plastics. So I have one Hades that's pretty board flat and is pretty, not overstable per se, but it will get left for me on backhand. So that's kind of, I lean into that disc if I find myself needing something pretty stable.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious, especially because Brad, forehand's not a strength of yours either, and that's okay because we're learning and and we're all in that place.
Hey, yeah. But I took your advice and sorry to jump off on this, but when I was throwing the forehand uplink, right, something more understable, and having that touch, I've started to throw a Thrasher forehand, and it is understable, and it's actually, I'm throwing some wicked forehand. So maybe in a couple episodes, I might say, hey, my forehand's not completely trash. It's more like recycling or something at this point. So it's a little useful.
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. Okay, fantastic. Well, Thrasher's a fantastic distant forehand. I'm here for that. So I will be checking in with you, Brad, and that. So, Michael, thank you for bringing future conversations for us. We appreciate it. Mm-hmm. Now, Absolutely. You have, so I want to dive in. You've got 3 volts in your bag. Mm-hmm. Walk me through those volts. What's the difference between the volts? Is one of them a bendy?
Yeah. So they're all overstable to some degree. Okay. The fission plastic, even though it's at the same weight, definitely is not as overstable. So it flies a little further and a little straighter. And then they kind of get down, so they get a little more overstable as you get to the neutron is kind of my middle of the road, and the plasma will definitely go left more than the other two. So, but it's just getting comfortable with those, having 3 things in there that I can throw at different angles. Again, I throw a lot of Anheuser, so when I throw, so sometimes if I throw the fission volt like on different lines, it doesn't want to come back as much because I've overturned it. So whereas the other 2, if I feel I have to get back, like those are ones that are going to come back for me way more. So so that's kind of the reason I have 3, and they are it's nice to have 3 of the same molds for hand feel and just the ability to, if I do lose one, it's like I still have something in my bag that's not unfamiliar. So
yeah. So you release on some natural Anheuser. What's the difference between the Insanity and the Virus for you? Because if you release on natural Anheuser, I'm very curious what slot a Virus feels for you, because it's a very understable disc.
They're very understable. So those, I've got to really focus on throwing Heisers. Like if I throw those on any kind of Anheuser, they are done, cooked to the right, never coming back, history. So the Virus for me is actually brand new. Probably 3 or 4 weeks ago I picked it up, and it's become probably my number 1 throwing driver in my bag. Like I really get a lot of Heiser on it, and it just flips up the flat, and it will, it'll go as far as anything in my bag. So it's been a really good disc. I had a tournament this weekend, and I threw a couple of those down tunnels where it just flipped up and landed in a 10-foot fairway. So I'm like, beautiful. That's all I'm looking for. So yeah, it's been. Now it does get touchy in the wind. Like there was a couple times I've played in any kind of tailwind, and that thing does not flip over, and it ends up going left because I just don't put enough. I don't think I put enough on it. So yeah. I had a couple of those where it did hit the road because we had more tailwind, I think, than I thought, and I could have given it a little more, and I didn't. So, but I love that disc.
That's totally fair. I think that beginners often, there isn't a lot of people, I think, that like to play in heavy amount of wind. Maybe if you're Ricky Wysocki and you can win the Dynamic Disc Open, or apparently Brody is just like a monster in the wind and just crushing the game. But beginners, especially understable discs and wind, never a good combination. And Brad can tell you from experience, you add some rain to that. It's super fun, right, Brad?
Oh, it's a great time. So you should try it.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
the next time it's windy
and
and it's raining, go for it.
Yeah, and the Insanity, it's kind of a holdover. Like I haven't used it a ton, but it definitely's got a lot of flip on it, and it is more overstable than the Virus. So it has its very niche reasons for being in my bag. I think probably in the last 6 rounds I've played, I don't know that I've used it once. So that one, I don't know why it's there.
Hey, Brad, you can say it.
Hey, man, if it's not good, take it out of the bag.
Because it sounds to me like you want that fission bolt to fill that slot that the Insanity's filling. Where instead of having to throw a different mold entirely, and maybe that's the case, and fission plastic, I think actually beats in pretty, like for all of the MVP plastics that aren't Electron, I think fission beats in really fast comparatively to the rest of them. So I think that you're on the right track there, and I love that. It sounds like you are, and even, okay, we didn't even talk about these. Do your Craves fill that spot as well? Like where the Insanity should be going?
Sort of. The Craves are a little bit shorter for me, so they fill, the Virus and the Insanity go a little like further, whereas the Craves, they have a lot more glide. Like I feel comfortable throwing those at like 70% or 65% and feeling I can still turn them over and get, again, I have to throw those on hyzer or else they'll be cooked to the right. Yeah. So I throw them at 70% and just, they're a much more controlled throw than the other ones. Okay. So that's kind of where those slot in. And I haven't used the Fission Crave a ton. I've got to get some field work with it to understand what it's going to do because it's super light.
Yeah. And they're new, which is fantastic.
And they're new, yeah.
Okay, so the overall vibe before we dive into your mids that I'm getting, and Brad, you tell me if you see this, disagree with this, because we need your help here. I'm gathering, Michael, that it feels like you're not releasing a ton of discs flat. Like you either have overstable stuff that you're having to release anhyzer, or you have understable stuff that you're having to release on hyzer. So there we go. It's fun.
You said it would.
Yeah.
It's finished.
So does that seem right? Brad, are you seeing that as well?
Yeah, that's what it seems like to me, and coming from someone, I typically release a little more on hyzer. I know definitely trying out all these different discs from each of these angles, it's made me way more conscientious of how I'm throwing it to make sure I'm getting more of a flat release to get these discs to fly how they're supposed to.
So
yeah, the only way.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd say the only disc that I think that I throw flat and without really trying is the Berg. Like that disc, again, I think maybe it's conscious. Like I know I have to throw it flat or it's going somewhere I don't want it to. And it's a much softer throw usually.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, this might be that makes me very excited for where we're heading with this. So you got 3 mid-ranges in the bag, and we talked about in a previous episode, especially when you're throwing 270, 280 in that range, mid-ranges can almost feel like they're in a weird spot because why would I can either throw my Judge this distance or I might as well step up to a Crave or a Volt or something like that. So like, why do I have these mid-ranges fill my bag? But I love that you mentioned, hey, I throw it like 60, 70% power, because mid-ranges fill that slot in an amazing way. And you have 3 mid-ranges. You have 2 reactors and a Paradox. Both of your reactors are in fission plastic. What's the difference between those 2 reactors?
So one's super light, and it'll flip over more for me. If I want to throw a more straight shot, I definitely use the heavier one. The problem I run into with those is I think it's the angle control. Like I either feel like if I put it on any kind of anhyzer, like they just cook to the right. I can flip up the lighter one a lot easier, I feel. It's just, I don't know, they're in a weird spot. I would say in the last 5 or 6 rounds I've used them 3 or 4 times. Like Now, when I am using them and I do a lot of field work with them, like I can throw both of those 250 to 260. Like I can really pump them out there. Like, but I've got to get in the groove with them. Like I throwing them cold, I'm just not as good with or comfortable with as the other ones.
Yeah,
So,
and because you have that practice with the hyzer angle or the virus, I'm guessing the paradox is probably your most used mid.
It's again, mids don't come out a ton in my bag. So the paradox again, it's kind of like the Draco. It's like if I've got to get right and I've got to do and have it go 200 to 220, the paradox is coming out. I'm putting it on some hyzer, flipping it up, and it's just the thing never wants to come back left. Like that disc will never come back left unless you throw it so light that it's not going anywhere. So. Yeah, so that's kind of what that's for, and there's plenty of places that I've used that.
Okay, awesome. Well, if we look at the chart, it's very similar to that judge that we were talking about earlier. There's a big, huge gap that you can see between the reactor and the paradox if we're looking at your My Disc Bag chart. And that is the slot that we want to lean into. And the reason that I had Brad try this disc is because I believe that this disc gets the worst sell by disc golfers above all else, even more than the Destroyer, more than the Luna being a 440, 3403. Like someone tried to say the Luna is like super overstable. Wrong. People say the Destroyer is a good distance driver for everybody. Wrong. This disc gets so poorly portrayed to the public because everyone looks at it and they're like, this is Innova's understable disc. And so people lean into it, they throw it, and they're like, wow, this disc is garbage. So I had Brad try this because I believe that it is the perfect neutral disc that will teach you angle control and release in a way that no other disc can do. And it sounds like that is the disc for you right now, Michael, because if you release it on hyzer, it rides hyzer, and hyzer and high, like it's going to be really good. So I'm not going to spoil too much. Brad, tell us what disc we tried.
All right. So today, Robbie had me try not two different molds, but the same mold in different plastics. So this is the Mako 3. I tried it in Champ and in Star. So this is going to be my honest feedback here, as I usually do. And I talk about a lot about disc feel. Like that's extremely important to me. I'm sure it is to most people. But honestly, just feeling both of these discs, I don't love how they feel. I'll just be 100% honest right out the gate. Doesn't mean I don't like how they fly. We'll get into that later. Just means I didn't love how they felt. I think the only reason I don't like, and I do like the Champion plastic a little bit better as far as feel, but I think the reason that I don't like it, and maybe it's just an unfamiliar, maybe just an unfamiliar feel for me. I don't know if I want to fan grip this thing or if I want to power grip it. It's just like this weird in-between space for me. So I didn't feel like I had a lot of confidence at first. I haven't thrown this disc ever until today, so there's a lack of confidence there, but also just I never felt like my hand was like perfectly comfortable with it. I did get a little bit more comfortable at the end and kind of had a little bit of a revelation about anhyzer angle, which if you've listened to the other podcasts, is not a great spot in my game. So feel at the beginning, it's okay. If I was giving it an out of 10, 5 out of 10. It's not horrible, but it's not super comfortable for me. So I'm doing Robbie really, I'm giving his credibility a glaring review right now because so far I'm like, it's okay.
Awful.
Okay, but here's the thing. Let's talk about how we threw it because I kind of got past this as I threw it a little bit, and I understand why Robbie was. So I looked at the flight numbers. So they're 5500. So to me, I'm like, okay, well this thing should be like dead straight then, right? But just from throwing other disc, I'm like, well, it's probably going to be flippy. I've heard about the Mako 3. It's flippy. So I threw it. Well, what I found out very quickly. So let's go to flat backhand first. To Robbie's point, this made me very, very conscious of the angle I was releasing it on. If I gave it a little too much anhyzer, that's where the disc is going. If I gave it a little too much hyzer, that's where the disc is going. Mainly, this is kind of, I think, like almost a point and shoot. Like the angle I'm giving this thing is where it wanted to go. I will say the Star plastic was a little bit more understable, but I'm not saying this disc is understable. It just tended, if I hit the anhyzer a little too hard when I'm trying to hit straight, it would probably continue to the right a little bit. Now, whereas the champion would maybe start to turn and then come back to the middle. But pretty much whatever angle I gave this thing on backhand, it took. And consistently 250 feet every single time. This was all about 70 to 80% power, most of those throws, and I did eventually get to the power grip on and throw them every time. I tried the fan grip. I didn't really feel like it gave it the spin that it needed to get the glide that I know it should have. So after I was power gripping it, 70 to 80% power, 250 feet every time, whatever line I gave it, that's pretty much the line that it took. So now I did try it on 100% power, as Robbie usually has me do. Okay, it burned over for me every time. You can't throw this thing hard. It's just not going to work. I did like the flight, though. I mean, I think I said this at the beginning, but point and shoot, it's not really something I have in my bag. Now, my beat-in buzz, I have that, but that thing's had almost 2 years of wear and tear on it. I know I'm not going to grab a buzz off the shelf and do the same thing. So very interesting there. Hyzer release backhand. Obviously, I could get these to flip up pretty easy with like minimal effort, 60 to 75% power. I could get these to flip up and ride. The Champion plastic could handle a little bit more torque, so I feel like I could put a little bit more on it and exaggerate that angle and really put the torque on to flip it up. So I did end up getting like maybe 15, 20 more feet every time on the Champion plastic. The Star was a little bit more finicky on the angle, coming back to that. Whatever angle you give this, even if you're flipping it up, that's what trajectory it's going to take out of your hand. So, but both really finished pretty laser beam straight and set down. That's really what happened for me on Hyzer release. Anhyzer release. So previous episode, I tried some on Anhyzer release. Not my strongest part of my game. But what I will say is, like, throwing these Mako 3s with Anhyzer kind of made me have a revelation. And again, this is not like this groundbreaking thing. It's just something that I finally had to realize myself is the thing I'm missing on my Anhyzer release is I've got to give these things some air time, because I got to give them time to get back to the ground and do what they're supposed to do. So, and then nose angle was extremely important, right? The amount of air time, the amount of like height I gave these discs on Anhyzer was very important, because if I'm being honest, the first couple Anhyzer throws I threw at both of them were trash. They were not good. They were gross. I mean, they only went 150 feet because I'm not giving them the appropriate amount of height. What I will say is, like, the Champion one specifically, and again, Robbie and I talked about this maybe a little bit before we jumped on here and recorded, but the Champion to me, like, I like Z plastic and Discraft, so it was more comfortable to me than maybe the Star. So I think it gave me a little bit more confidence than I realized, and that's probably why I threw it better. But both of these on Anhyzer, I mean, 250, 260, there's a consistent theme on distance here. That seems like this disc max range to me. And if I gave it that right height and I gave it the right angle, it gave me a nice panning turn every time, and just kind of sat flat nicely on the ground. That is not a shot I have in my bag. That's the shot I always wanted my Meteor to be, that I could never get it to do. And I don't know why. It may have been the plastic. It may have been how I was throwing at the time, or I'm not sure. But both these discs really gave me a nice turn. Again, I don't have a great forehand either, Michael. If I had this shot, I can think of probably 10 holes right now in my local courses. I'm like, man, should I bag a Mako 3? And here's the thing. I'm not going to, because it doesn't have a spot in my bag right now. I'm not going to be that guy anymore. But I think for someone like you, Michael, who has that clear gap that you really need something to fit in there, I think this is a great disc for you. And coming back to your type of release, and you don't want to do something completely 100% power every time, I think this is a great disc for you. It's going to teach you angle control and get you more consistent with your angles without being super punishing. It's not going to super burn on you, but it is going to let you know, hey, you put me on the wrong Anhyzer angle. Hey, you gave me a Hyzer release. You're going to know when you throw these discs. So that's my experience. Robbie, I'll give it back to you.
Yeah. So have you thrown a Mako 3 before, Michael?
No, I have not actually. I have some buzzes. I had a Hex until I lost it, which is kind of similar, but no, Mako 3s I've never thrown.
Yeah, and I will tell you that this is coming from a man who was on Team Innova, And I had Team Innova members tell me, oh yeah, dude, Mako, because I was like, all right, what's like the understable mid-range? Because I was coming from bounties with dynamic discs. And I was like, I need an understable mid-range. And everybody was like, oh yeah, it's the Mako 3, dude. You need the Mako 3. And I just kept telling, you're crazy. Like, that is not what this disc is. And yes, you can get it to flip up, like Brad said. Yes, if it hits that Anheuser, it'll hold it. But it's just such a phenomenal teaching disc. And like Brad said, you don't have to throw it hard for it to go far. I'd be willing to bet that you're going to find it really does fit this middle ground of the, like, between the reactor and the paradox. That's our hope, at least, for you. So my question to you, Michael, is have you thrown Innova plastic before, and do you have a preference between Star plastic and Champion plastic?
I do. I mean, I've got a bunch. I've become sort of a little bit of an MVP fanboy, if you couldn't tell.
Yeah, no, it's fair. It's fair.
So, yeah, I mean, I prefer Star plastic. I have a Star T-Bird that I love still, just not in the bag right now. So yeah, Star is better for me. I found Champ, I don't know, it's too stiff or gummy, or I don't know what I just don't like it as much.
Yeah, and that is part of why I had Brad try this in the same mold in two different plastics, is because yes, I do think that the plastic type affects a little bit. Brad definitely nailed the truth on, like, Champ is a little more torque resistant, which I completely agree with. But I told Brad before we had you on, Michael, I am shocked that Brad prefers the Champion plastic, because most people I come across are in the Star plastic world. So I'm very excited for that. But what we want to do is we want to send you this Star Mako 3 for you to bag. And would you be willing to come throw it for a little while? And I know it's not gyro, but if you want, you can just take like a Sharpie and draw like a little black rim on the edge, and then just like believe in your heart of hearts that it is gyro, right? So, hey, we could even see if Silas is doing spin dies, and when Silas gets on spin dies with Plastic Addict, we'll have him gyro up some discs. It'll be great. But yeah, so if you're willing to come back on, we would love to have you try this out and let us know what it does for you, Michael. Sound like something you're good with?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm always willing to try some new stuff, get better and see where I can go.
Come on. Well, hey, what we'll do is we'll follow up with you, get that information from you, and we'll have you back on a couple weeks after you get this disc and see how it went for you. And Michael, I just want to say we appreciate you, man. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for being on the In the Bag podcast. People keep saying that we're bringing people on to roast. That's everyone's like, hey, I want to get my bag roasted. Do you feel like we roasted your bag, Michael?
No, not at all. Not at all. You didn't even mention the drivers, so man, I was expecting the wave to have, it's like, oh, I guess I'm good then. No, it was good. This has been, it's been very helpful. I guess, I have my, it's kind of like I have those classic blend judges just sitting there, and I do, like, once in a while I'll just throw them out here, like, but I don't ever bag them. So, just thinking, hey, can I bag one of those, and can it fill a slot that I don't currently have? And then, this has been good with the Mako 3. I never would have thought about putting that in my bag. So, yeah, it's been very helpful, and no roasting.
No roasting. Okay, awesome. We'll save that for the chestnuts in the open fire. So fantastic. Well, Michael, thank you seriously for coming on. Brad, thank you for continuing to go out and letting me destroy your confidence with trying to throw Anheuser angles. Don't worry, we're going to fix it soon.
Hey, it'll come together, I'm sure. Michael, thank you very much, man. We appreciate you.
Another week, another guest, and another opportunity, Brad, for me to make you realize that Anheuser shots are the future. And man, what a time!
I know, man. I'm getting there. Hey, the good thing is I'm being forced to practice all these every week, and that's the only way I'm going to get better. So I'm grateful for it. It's a painful process, but like I said, we are learning. I am putting some different stuff in my bag, rearranging some stuff, and thinking about the game even differently. So it's all because of this podcast, so I'm still grateful, even though it can be frustrating sometimes.
Hey, and what I like is we're improving your game, we're improving the guest game, we're improving people who are listening. And I'll be real, as a coach, it's improving my game as well, because it's truly making me think about, okay, when I'm walking people through like shots and all things like that, like what am I actually getting them equipped for? So I'm excited to see your progression, Brad, even when we get to, way down the line, it's episode 52, and we're like, oh yeah, Brad, like how far are you throwing this mid-range? We're like, oh yeah, I throw like 400 now. That's what I do. That's what I be. So I hope that we all grow together in that, and just super grateful for you, man. But speaking of growth, what's new in the warehouse?
All right, so by the time this comes out on Friday, we'll have had our DD3 drop, and sorry to say, spoilers, it sold out like within the first 10 minutes, so sorry everybody. We will get some more in soon, so keep an update there. We'll probably have had our Discmania restock. I think it's coming in on Thursday, so we'll have some more selection there. Restock on FDs, which we are out of currently. Lazat Stamp Mutant and Splice came out, so there may be still a few of those left. Dynamic Trilogy, we've got the Sake Bomb First Run Slammer is coming out, so hopefully you caught one of those before this episode or during this episode. Let's see, the B Dynamic discs are in, the Tour Stamp discs are in, I believe it's, correct if I'm wrong, Crystal Lucid? Ice, I'm sorry, that's what it is. Ice Lucid Plastic is coming out for some of the Ricky discs, so we'll have those. So cool Trilogy stuff coming out. We got some Discmania, so a lot of good stuff, Robbie.
Dude, that is awesome. That is awesome. I know personally, first off, the orange first run slammers look so good. So good.
They're tasty. The teal one has my eye, so I'm not going to put it in the bag because I don't need it in the bag, but I might just have one for the shelf or for the wall.
Yeah. It's like the have in your workstation kind of disc, so that you can like, I just need to touch a disc right now. All right, cool. Spin. We're good to go.
Exactly.
That is awesome. Well, hey, we have one disc that we need to give away to our amazing audience. So we have this Champion Mako 3. And here is what we want you to do. First off, love that you guys are participating and humoring us by making those comments extra funny to read. We very much appreciate it. You guys are rock stars. But here's what we're looking for this week. I like to laugh. Brad likes to laugh.
Yes, I do.
The summer's here, Brad, kids are out for the summer. Here we go. My wife is a children's librarian, like we talked about earlier on. So she gets more busy during the summer because kids are out for the summer. So I've got time on my hand. You've got some time to spend with kids. What is a TV show that we need to watch? Let us know in the comments below. Families gathering around. What's the TV show that we're putting on? Let us know. We'll pick a winner and give us a reason why we should watch that show. Not just like The Office, done. Like, come on, guys.
Of course.
Make it interesting.
Yeah. Right.
So, looking forward to reading those comments and getting the Mako 3 in y'all's hands, and be looking forward because I go back through and I let people know, hey, you won. So be sure to pay attention to your notifications, y'all. So it's a good time. Brad, grateful for you. Grateful for another episode in the bag, man.
Of course, yeah. Hey, you know what they say. If it's good, keep it in the bag.
We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.